This is a story about trying to race a snowstorm out of Colorado, and some of the things that affect you living on the road are mechanical issues and weather. And you can avoid weather issues. And as a pilot, I know that the best thing you can do is make a decision not to fly in bad weather. The same thing applies to driving an RV in bad weather, in particular in mountainous bad weather. We had been held up a couple of days by mechanical issues on our way to see my son and his family in Oklahoma. So we had a little extra pressure to keep moving. And as we left the area near Gunnison, Colorado, it was snowing, and I had caught enough of the forecast the night before to know that we were going to need to leave as early as possible and hopefully beat the bulk of the weather, which was coming later that day. There's a bunch of things that I should have done. One of them was use some of the fantastic weather tools that there are to really find out exactly what the weather was doing. Number two, probably should have bought chains for the RV. They are required for commercial vehicles. For other vehicles, it's a little nebulous on what the law is. Snow tires can work under some conditions, but it depends on the level that they're requiring that particular day. So I think we were legal, but I'm not sure. But we headed on out of Gunnison, and sure enough, just like I was hoping, we ran and drove into better weather. But what I should have really paid attention to and thought a little stronger about was when we got close to Monarch Pass, which goes from the road, I think, was at about 7,000 feet. The pass is about 11,000 feet. Where we were, it was above freezing, a couple degrees above freezing. But for each 1,000 feet that you go up in moist air, it's a good 3-degree drop. So from 7,000 feet to 11,000 feet is 4,000 feet, so you're going to get at least 12-degree drop. And if it's 34 degrees where we were, it's going to be 22 degrees at 11,000 feet. And that's what it was. And as we climbed Monarch Pass, the weather started out fine and then deteriorated very rapidly. And what happens in a large vehicle, like a truck, semi, or an RV, is that if your drive wheels, spin, you'll do what truckers refer to as spinning out. It isn't that you spin around in circles like you would spin out in a car. It's simply that your wheels spin. And when that happens, if you lose momentum and get stuck, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to have to be towed, unless you've got chains. And putting chains on once you're stuck is a major ordeal. So, the whole thing was nerve-wracking because as we climbed, it got worse and worse. It got windy. The wheels did spin once going around a corner, and a wind blast hit us. But pulling a car up a 6% grade on a snowy, icy road is, a bit nerve-wracking. But we made it to the summit and then headed down the other side. And that's when a little more of the excitement began. We saw a semi that had spun out and was stuck in the driving lane. We saw a car that had broken down or stopped for whatever reason in the traffic lane coming up the other side. We saw a car that just about flew off the side of the mountain. It was barely hanging on. I'm not sure what kept it from going on down the ravine. I think if they were lucky, it would have been stopped by trees. But you know, if you missed a couple of trees, I don't know how many thousand feet they might have plunged down the side of Monarch Mountain, or whatever the name of the mountain is there. And then we did see somebody that was actually pretty seriously hurt, enough to require an ambulance to pick him up and rush him to the hospital. They had hit a rock and their airbags had gone off. And all of this on the downhill side of this thing, the going down side, and the weather was just a little worse on the way down than it was on the way up. But the lesson learned here is that, you know, it wasn't necessary to take that risk. And we could have just, you know, suffered through some snow at our campground for a day, and by the next day, I'm pretty sure it would have been fine, and the roads would have been dry, and it would have been an easy climb over Monarch Pass. Anyway, something to think about.